Okay, Erdos is white. Mr. Lickner is black. D4, D5. So again, we have a classical opening. And now we have... This is a move that I played against somebody in the North American Open about 7 years ago. I had never played against it. I was black. He opened D4. I played D5. And I had never seen this gambit before, E4. Now, this is played, okay, to keep black from developing pieces. So you take the pawn, it looks like it's a free pawn, okay? And there is a name for the gambit, but it's got to be played correctly. So after this, sure enough, pawn takes pawn. Ooh. And white offers another pawn, and a dangerous one at that, because this queen can come up here and check this king almost immediately once this pawn's out of the way. But what white is doing, he's keeping black from developing pieces. Okay, he's keeping black busy taking pawns. And sure enough, black says, thank you. Oh boy, I have 2 free pawns. If I can get to endgame, I should win easily, right?
Should you be ready to give up 2 other pawns as black?
Obviously, this has been worked out before. This particular gambit's been worked out before. So white develops a piece, gets one of the 2 pawns back. So he's only down 1 pawn now.
I mean, should black be ready to give up a pawn somewhere later in the game?
Oh, yes. You can't always hold on. It depends. The queen's gambit, if you take, you have to be ready to give it back. It depends on the pattern. There are patterns where you can try to hold on to the pawn and nurse it to endgame and actually try to win. The problem is that black, this is the 3rd move of the game. Okay, that was the 3rd move of the game. This is the 4th move for white. Here's the 4th move coming up at the beginning of the game. What's black got on the board after 4 moves? Nothing. No development, not even a pawn pushed. Now, it's true, he's got 2-1, he's got a 1 pawn advantage. And if he can nurse it to the end game, that 1 pawn probably will be enough to win the game. The problem is he's never going to make it to end game because he has no army to fight and stop all kinds of stuff happening in mid game. That's the theory, okay? Let's see how white is going to take advantage of his 1 developed piece, his beautifully opened light squared diagonal for the light squared bishop, his beautifully opened dark squared advantage, where black only has 1 bishop opened up and nothing on the board. All right, so knight takes pawn. He's got to catch up in development, knight f3. Quick development, bishop c4, probably going to castle immediately, have the rook on the semi-open f-file, eyeing this lovely little f7 pawn with the rook, the knight, and the bishop on it. So there's all kinds of stuff coming here, guys. Black recognizes that and says, no sacrifices here. I'm not going to let you sack down here and get this knight in and say check and do all that stuff. I'm going to stop that right away. White immediately pins the knight to the queen, and now, after 6 moves, 1, 2, 3 pieces developed to 1 after 6 moves. So already you're a 3-1, which means you could probably sacrifice any one of these and still be 2-1 on the board and have scenarios being created where you can try to trap or get the piece back or do a checkmate and all kinds of weird stuff because you have your pieces out. These pieces are back home watching the debates. It's not working, okay? They have to get out on the battlefield. Okay. Bishop takes away the pin immediately, which is a nice move. White develops the last minor piece. All 4 minors are developed by move 7. And he's ready to castle. He could actually even get the queen out and decide to castle this way if he wanted to, because you should have all these 4 minors out and castle by the 10th move. And that was move 7. So he could even do move 8 here and take his choice of castling. Really nice, very nice. Black has to catch up in development, so he now has 3 out to white's 4, so he's almost caught up. Not quite, but almost there. Okay, white decides instead of developing or castling, getting the queen out, pawn, it's not a bad idea because it's a very pretty little pawn. What do we call this? Pawn chain. Pretty little pawn chain on the dark squares. But I think the real reason is it allows the queen to come up here to b3 to attack this pawn if this bishop gets developed, or put a little more pressure along this light diagonal with a battery. Also allows the queen to go to c2 and h7 once black castles. Also maybe white's thinking of castling long, so the queen could go anywhere along here and then could castle on the queen's side. So he took that one extra move, and black said, okay, I better castle my king to safety. And white said, okay, I'll catch up with my 4 moves of safety, so I'm castled. So that was the 9th move. So pretty much everybody's done what they're supposed to. That was the 9th move for white. This would be the 9th move for black, which would get the last minor piece developed. They'd both be castled. The queen and rooks would be connected, and they're all fighting now. So everybody's pretty much doing what they are supposed to in the first 10 moves. Knight to g4. Let's take a look and see what the possibilities are. If bishop takes, queen will take or knight will take. And then this knight, since this bishop is not here guarding e3, is going to come in here, fork the queen and the rook and the bishop. So you're going to win an exchange. I think that's what it is. I think black is trying to get here to fork the queen and the rook and win 5 points for 3 once this is exchanged, because this is guarding e3. So I think he's thinking, even if I have to lose this and trade this, then I can come in here and do my little fork. So if you're white, how would you stop that?
Bishop f4?
I was thinking, I like bishop f4, Rita. I think that's a very nice move. I think that's a good move. White decided, well, he has a plan. First, he gets a little closer to the center. Hey, actually, he's in the center. And he's saying, if you take, it's okay, because I will take back here. And if you fork my queen and rook, I'll just bring my queen up, and you can take my rook, and I'll checkmate you, right? Because the knight will be sitting here, and the queen will come here to h7. All right, so I think that's the plan. If he takes, this knight takes back. The queen can't take, it's guarded by this knight. So if the knight comes in and forks, queen here, threatening mate. And he won't have time to take the rook. He'll have to stop the checkmate, and then he can just move the rook away. So he's getting his pieces closer to the king.
Well, and then
But then the bishop's hanging.
This bishop?
No, the other bishop.
This bishop is hanging here?
Yeah, like
Well,
if
if
you
he-
move the rook away, you just take the
He
bishop.
threatens mate.
He's threatening mate. You have no time. You
block
don't
the
care.
mate, and then you move the rook, and then the bishop is
Well, if he
hanging because
doesn't
there are no
move the rook,
knights
he
left.
could take the knight. If he doesn't move the rook, he just takes
I sort of like this because look what you're doing is you're moving your queen side knight
So, but the queen's on
to the king side, and you're going after the king right away. If you're black, I don't know if I would take this. It helps white to trade this bishop. I might just end it all right here and stop any attack on this diagonal. Of course, by doing this, then you're weakening these squares here. And these squares, so you have to make a determination. All right, let's see what let's see what black did to counter that.
Well, you could put the question to the bishop.
Well, black decided to take the bishop. I think is a mistake.
Yeah, because
Okay, this knight takes, which opens up this here. Okay, so you've got 2 on f7, but you do have 2 covering it. But you see now if the knight comes here to fork, where would, oh, the queen would come here and threaten mate. Okay. And then you just move the rook away when he stops the threat. All right, let's take a look and see how he does it.
Hold on, he has 2 on d4. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, and sure enough, knight comes and he does the fork. We all saw this, right?
Yeah.
Certainly attractive as the knight attacks 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3, right? And sure enough, threatening mate, stopping the mate for a moment. And now, here's the key. And remember, when he gave up this pawn, he had the idea of opening this up, okay?
That.
Right.
You could rook take
Bubba.
Rook takes.
Yeah.
Is that like an X-claim?
Well, not really, because he's got 3 on it, so if he takes, he can always take back with the knight or the queen and say check and then just save the knight. The thing is that suppose he decides to take the knight with the pawn or with the queen.
Oh, but
Then you'll have a tempo. Are you going to have some tempos here? Maybe if rook takes, knight takes here, opening up the bishop on the king. You see, there's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of possibilities, and you have to look at all of them. That's why sometimes when the masters and grandmasters are playing a game like this, black might take a half hour to an hour for this next move. He'd have to look at rook takes rook, 5 moves into advance. Pawn takes knight, 5 moves into the future. Queen takes knight, not good because of knight takes. Maybe knight takes bishop, maybe knight over here. I mean, maybe push pawn to get the bishop. He'd have to look at almost every single move, 5 or 6 moves deep. And if he's looking at 7 different possibilities at 5 moves deep, that's 35 different moves. That's like 70 ply because he's got to look at white and black. It's going to take him
Half an hour.
at least half an hour and maybe an hour. And sometimes they take an hour. Grandmasters are playing 6-hour games. They have 3 hours each side. And they may use 1 hour for one move because they realize if they make the mistake, it's over anyway.
Well, because black has really been behind the whole game.
Yes, in development, that's correct. So black's got a whole bunch of choices here. My gut tells me to take this knight because this knight is so strong. The problem is knight takes and you're threatening again. I know, but this, knights are very dangerous pieces. When they cross the equator and they come into your territory, like Mick says, get rid of them. Even if you have to give up a bishop, just get rid of them. You don't have to deal with the headache. They're fine on their side of the board. You don't have to worry too much. Once they cross into your territory, they become monsters, They're fire-breathing dragons. Get rid of them. All right. Let's take a look and see what black actually decided to do. Okay, rook takes rook. He took the rook with the rook. I guess the lesser of 2 evils. Queen takes rook check. King back. That was his only move, right?
and then queen d6.
Knight in. Now, let's take a look and see what you're looking at.
They can't take with the pawn because then it'll be checkmate.
If he takes with the pawn, the queen comes here and says checkmate. So he can't take with the pawn.
And if he takes the other knight,
And if he takes with the queen, then this is checkmate here. Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe here. Yes, he would check here,
And then
queen blocks, and then he takes, and then it's mate.
if he takes the other knight, it's queen h5 mate.
You're right. So if the pawn takes this knight, queen comes here, and it's checkmate, because knight covers this escape square. So he has a problem. He has a serious, serious problem now.
He's baked either way, right?
Well,
Is there a way out of this?
knight back.
The only possible is that the queen can't check him right now. Honestly.
There are no emergency checks for black, so I think he brings this knight back, to cover the queen from coming here and coming in here? Because the queen could go here and here for mate. Now the queen can't come here.
And it can't come to g8.
Yeah, it says to prevent the queen from stealing in.
What about bishop d3?
Well, here's what happens anyway. Take my queen. Because when the knight
yeah,
goes
oh,
here,
it goes to F7.
it's checkmate.
Ah,
The two knights would checkmate. You see, if the knight takes the queen,
Yeah.
this is checkmate.
so he didn't even need his queen.
Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild?
Is that what he does?
Well, he can't take, but he's threatening mate here. So what could he do?
To G8.
Well, no, he only has one move,
Yeah.
which is queen knight 1. And I suppose he would win, but if he takes the queen, he'll take his queen, and then you've got a game, and then you can take the bishop.
Queen
No.
H7.
Knight F7.
That's what he does.
And then knight F7 mate.
Yeah, that's what he does. And the queen has no choice,
And then
and now mate. That is one of the cooler games I've done. Okay? And this shows you the power of the two knights. I'm telling you guys, if they cross the equator into your territory, get rid of the knights. Do not allow them to fester on your side of the board. They're too dangerous. They're just too dangerous. And two knights on your side of the board, you can see what they did without any other help.
That was a good lesson.
Well, and the
Don't get
queen.
behind in development.
Don't get behind in development, and it allowed white, and white, remember, gave up the extra one pawn, but he was always like, since you're starting the game with one tempo ahead anyway, because you have the first move, he got like a second tempo for the pawn, but those two tempos, black really never caught up. And so you really have to watch out. You know, you have to constantly be aware of what's going on. These are really fabulous little games. All right, that's our lesson for today. We have a tournament that starts in 40 minutes. You may have free play till then. Okay? Thanks, guys.